Hello and welcome to Good Evening Britain, a Force for Good's weekly show coming to you live from our studios here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow, with me, your host, Alistair McConnachie. We are broadcasting on all our digital platforms throughout the United Kingdom and across the world. We're bringing you quality pro-UK comment and analysis every Wednesday from 7 until 8 p.m. on Facebook, on YouTube, on X, and on TikTok. Folks, please do tell us where you're watching from. Please do send in your greetings because we love to hear from you. Send in your comments and send in your questions, and we'll do our best to flag them up here on the screen and to answer them when we can. It's been a great day here in Glasgow. I hope it's been a nice sunny day wherever you live as well. Tonight at the bottom of the hour, we have a show favourite coming back on for you. That's Ash, that Preston journalist, as he has come to become very well known as across YouTube. And we'll be talking to him about the latest goings on in Holyrood and the latest goings on in UK politics, and also the latest goings on in the channel, which is always a source of aggravation for us British patriots as we watch our country being invaded. It's being invaded always, of course, but the most obvious one is across the channel, and our government does very little to address it when there are ways to address it, which we'll be getting into tonight, because we've titled this program Deportation, Is It Possible? And the answer is a resounding yes. Of course, it's possible. But what we don't have right now is the political will to do it on the scale that is necessary to do it. And we don't have the political will because the people who populate the political culture do not have the mentality. And it's the mentality which you need before you can actually do the action, because without the mind, your body is not going to follow. So what Britain really needs is a revolution of the mind. And when you have that revolution of the mind, then there can be a revolution in action. And right now, our political culture is suffering from all sorts of, I don't want to say liberal, because that's a good word, but it's come to become a kind of bad word. A lot of liberal illusions, a lot of misunderstandings about human nature in the last 80 years or so. And we're at the stage where a lot of those chickens are coming home to roost. And if we keep going on with that kind of way of thinking, then our country will be finished. It will be over. And so we need a revolution of the mind to turn back, to turn the mind another way. We need a change in the brain, as I like to say. And when we've got a change in the brain, as is surely coming, then we will be able to save our country. And whatever we can do to help that change in the brain, whatever we at A Force for Good can do to help that change in thinking that unlocks the potential for all sorts of new policies, then we're going to do it. And we're certainly going to be talking about those things. That's what we do. That's what we do for a living here at A Force for Good. I want to say hello to people who have just come in. Debbie, good evening to you. Debbie says, I'm on a train, so I'll have to watch it later. Hope everybody is well. Well, what you need to do, Debbie, these days is just put it up loud just sit it in front of you and just let it blast the entire carriage, because that's what all the folks do these days. It appears on the public transport. They don't seem to care about everybody else around them. But at least if it's a force for good, it will be broadcasting knowledge to the world, right? Catherine says hello from Hindland. Hello to you, Catherine. Oksana says hi, all. And Persephone says, yes, absolutely, 100%. We don't have a government brave enough to do it. Absolutely. Good to see Derek back in the house after your absence last week, Derek. You were missed. Good evening. Hope everyone is doing well. Ken says we need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. We certainly do. We also need to leave the UN Refugee Convention. That's a big one. That's a big one. And when that comes about, that will be a complete change in the Western world's way of thinking, because Britain is uniquely vulnerable. I was thinking about this the other day. We as an island, we tend to think, oh, as an island, we're safe because there's water. Not really. We're actually more vulnerable because we cannot literally build a wall. We'll get to that later in the program. Christopher says, the political classes and many of the middle classes have no understanding of the threats we are facing. That's what's absolutely worrying. That's what's absolutely worrying. It really is. Good. Well, I want to start off with the theme of the show tonight, which is deportation. And deportation is the theme because Rupert Lowe and Reform and Nigel Farage, they all had a bit of a falling out. And I'm hoping that maybe they can patch these things up in time. But it appeared to be over Rupert Lowe's enthusiasm for deportation. And some people have been saying that Nigel doesn't want deportation because of one interview that he did, which he maybe wasn't thinking too much about when he gave the answer, but which has come to kind of haunt him. And I think that particular interview that he did, where he seemed to be saying that he didn't think deportation was feasible, I think that's not really to be taken as read. I think it's been kind of exaggerated out of the importance. I'm not entirely sure Nigel meant what it's been understood as. I do think Nigel is open to deportation within the bounds of possibility. But Rupert Lowe himself is going full scale on deportation. And it made me think, when we talk about that, what specifically are we referring to? And is it even possible? And before we get into it, I want to play a video here of Donald Trump, who's also big on deportation. And he released this video from the White House yesterday, and it's about, get this, a deportation app. Now, you can get an app to like keep you fit, and you can get an app that helps you to identify what kind of weeds are growing in your garden. And you can get an app to, identify rocks or something like that. Well, this is an app to help you to deport. Let's play the video.
People in our country illegally can self-deport the easy way, or they can get deported the hard way, and that's not pleasant. The Biden administration exploited the CBP-1 app to allow more than 1 million aliens to illegally enter the United States. Now my administration is launching the CBP Home app to give people in our country illegally an easy way to leave now and self-deport voluntarily. If they do, they could potentially have the opportunity to return legally at some point in the future. But if they do not avail themselves of this opportunity, then they will be found, they will be deported, and they will never be admitted again to the United States, ever again. You're never coming in. Using the CBP Home app to leave the United States voluntarily is the safest option for illegal aliens and our law enforcement. It also saves the U.S. taxpayer dollars and valuable CBP and ICE resources. And all of those resources are necessary to focus on dangerous criminal aliens. And that's what we're focused on. The CBP Home app is now available free across all mobile app stores. And I encourage those who have violated our laws to use this option today. Do it right and come back into our country. Do it wrong and you'll never be back again.
I love that. I love that. An app to self-deport. Absolutely fantastic. But unlike a fitness app, okay, where you can download the fitness app and forget all about it, if you download the Self-Deport app, you do have to deport. You literally do have to go through the motions and actually head down to San Antone and over the border again. So that's a great advance in what I'm calling deportation technology. And think of the money that can be made if you're an investor. Put your money into deportation technology. You heard it here first, okay? Because there's going to be a lot of money in getting all the people who shouldn't be here out of the country. And a deportation app is just the beginning. And they've even got a snappy slogan. You can get it from all mobile stores, and it's do it the easy way or get deported the hard way. Fantastic. Fantastic. They're even coming up with slogans now for deportation. Do it the easy way or get deported the hard way. And the thinking here is, if you self-deport, you download it, you inform the authorities of your illegal existence in the country. And so you're identifying yourself. I'm not sure if it can track you with, GPS or not, but if it's got your mobile phone number, it will be able to track you with GPS. It's just a matter of whether it's legal or not. Hopefully it will do that. And so it'll be able to watch your transition, or at least the movement of your phone to the border. And then presumably when you're over the border, you do a selfie, whatever, and you prove that you've self-deported. And then you will be allowed to come back at some time in the future, but only legally. Okay, so that's the incentive. If you're here illegally, you can go back home and tell everybody you've self-deported and then try to come in legally. And you may or may not get in legally, but you can at least try to come in legally. Whereas if you don't report yourself, then you're going to be tracked down, you're going to be found, you're going to be shipped out, and you're never coming back in. You're not coming back in ever again, as Donald Trump said there. So that's a great innovation in deportation technology. Okay, and there must surely be more innovations to come. And if I was Elon Musk, I would be forgetting about trying to populate Mars, because that's just like a pipe dream. I would be like, the money is in deportation. That's where it's in now as well. So, and put your money and investment into all of that. And see that little just change in the brain there from deportation, that's terrible, who would do that, to deportation is the talk of the town. Everybody's doing it. Absolutely. That's how we change. That's how we change mentalities, and we make it acceptable. So here in the UK, for example, who can we actually deport? And this is what keeps me up at night, right? This is what I spend my life thinking about. It's like, who can we deport? I know. How do we do it? Write that one down. This is what I do. I should get paid for this. I should get paid for this. The government should be paying me to do this. Anyway, I've come up with the various people who can and should be deported. And the first thing you have to understand is the concept of citizenship. Like, if you're a British citizen and you're not a citizen of any other country, then it's really difficult to deport you. Okay, because it's to deport you to another country, say Anywhere Island. Why should Anywhere Island take you if you're not a citizen of Anywhere Island? That's maybe where you came from in the past, but they're not going to take you back if you're not a citizen of that country. They might if you somehow give them enough cash or something like that. But normally a country is not going to take somebody who's not a citizen. So once people become British citizens and forgo any other kind of citizenship, it is really hard, if not impossible, to deport them, because you would have to strip them of British citizenship prior to deportation. And it is generally regarded against international law that you can't render somebody stateless in that way. So if somebody is just a British citizen and nothing else, then it's virtually impossible to deport them unless they want to go away themselves. You know, maybe they can be encouraged to leave, to go to another country, to live in another country, and then eventually take that country's citizenship. Okay, that's really the only way you can do it. You can't do it. You can't do it. You can't force them, but you can maybe encourage them to leave until such time as they move to another country and adopt that country's citizenship over a period of years. That's really the only way you're getting rid of people like who are British citizens and nothing else. Dual citizens, however, are a different matter. If you're a dual citizen of Britain and a dual citizen of Anywhere Island, then you can be stripped of your British citizenship because you're still got the citizenship of Anywhere Island. And Anywhere Island is obliged to take you because you are a citizen of that country. You're still a citizen of that country. So dual citizens can be stripped of their British citizenship and told to leave to their other country of nationality. That's perfectly legal. That's perfectly within the law. And it's one of the reasons why I personally support the idea of dual citizenship, because as I always say, it makes it easier to deport people. And the other classification, of course, is simply a foreign citizen, somebody who is here, doesn't have British citizenship, and simply holds the citizenship of their previous country that they came from. They can always go back. They can always be deported to that other country of citizenship. So the two peoples that we can deport are dual citizens and foreign citizens. That's easy to do. There's nothing illegal about that. In fact, that's just been the way of humanity for hundreds of years. And so if we look at those two categories, dual citizens and foreign citizens, what sort of people would be worthy of being involuntarily deported? That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about self-deportation. We're talking about involuntary deportation of those people. And they would fall into 5 categories. And the first category is what's called inadmissible asylum seekers. That's people who rock up at Dover and you say to them, you're not getting in just because we don't like your face. It could be as easy as that, because it is within British law and it is within UN refugee law that we can simply say that an asylum claim is inadmissible, even if that person is a genuine refugee. We can do that. The only requirement upon us is that we don't send that person back to some place where he or she is in danger. But we can say you're inadmissible. That is we can say to them, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. And these are people who can be involuntarily deported someplace else that agrees to take them within the UN Refugee Convention. So that's inadmissible asylum seekers can be deported to what's called safe third countries, whether that's back to France or whether it's to Rwanda or Ascension Island or wherever. And we should be doing that a lot more, obviously. The second category of person is failed asylum seekers, which is people who have come in at Dover and we've said, okay, we are going to admit your claim, we're going to investigate it, and we're going to make a decision on it. And of course, that can take weeks, months, usually years, unfortunately. And if we decide at the end of the day that no, you don't have a case, your asylum claim is now officially ended, you have to leave. And these people can be encouraged to self-deport. They can, in my view, they should be given money to leave. They don't have to go home, but they can't stay here, is the phrase. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Or they should be involuntarily deported if they're not going to play ball. So that's the second category, failed asylum seekers. The third category is what we call clandestine illegals. That is people who have snuck in, they've avoided the proper ports of entry, they've broken the British law of entry. We've found them and we've said, what you've done is not acceptable, you have to get out of here. Clandestine illegals. That's the third category. The fourth category is visa breaching illegals. That's people who have come in legally on a work visa or a student visa. And on these visas, it properly tells you what you can and can't do. And it will also give you the date at which that visa ends. And what you find with visa breaching illegals mainly is that these are people who have stayed on after their visa ended and their presence in Britain is now illegal. They have to go home. They have to be encouraged to self-deport. That's the first option. And if they won't self-deport, they have to be involuntarily moved out of the country. Visa breaching illegals have stayed in contravention of the terms of their visa. And what you'll also find with some visa breaching illegals is that they came in as a student, they're on a student visa, but they're actually been caught working. That would also be considered in breach of their visa. That would also be considered as an illegal act that they had done. And because they've broken their visa that way, they have to leave as well. So visa breaching illegals can be people who have breached their visas, the terms of their visa, or the length of their visa. And the fifth one is the one that people are really always focused on, which is the foreign criminals. That's people who have been convicted, and it has to be 12 months or more, who are not citizens of the United Kingdom, but they're citizens of another country. They've come here for whatever reason, and they've committed a crime. They've been sentenced to 12 months or more. They are meant to be, under current law, they're meant to be deported. Some of them are deported, but many more of them need to be deported at the end of their sentence, however long their sentence may be. And what you find with a lot of them is these are the people who are making human rights claims, saying that they've been in the country now, they've been in prison for 10 years, but they've married and, you know, they've got family commitments here and so on. So these are the ones who tend to be allowed to stay. Unfortunately, it's the foreign criminals of all the ones. They're the ones that get almost the best deal in some respects. But no, they need to be shifted out as well. 100%, they need to be shifted out. So those are the four categories, essentially. Inadmissible asylum seekers, failed asylum seekers, visa breaching illegals, which can be people who have breached their visa, the terms of their visa or the length of their visa, and the foreign criminals. 4 or 5 categories if you want to split the visa breachers into 2 categories. Any more? Let me think. 6, essentially 6 categories, right? So these are the ones that a realistic deportation program needs to be focused in on. And once you start moving these people out, then what happens as well is that everything else around it changes. People have a different view of immigration policy. People begin to realize, well, wait a minute. We're deporting people now. That means we can actually, if we're going that far, there's lots of other things we could be doing as well, such as basically closing the borders completely, changing the asylum system completely. All of these sort of things suddenly become seemingly possible now that you've actually begun down a new route of serious behavior. Oksana says, we need that app here. Catherine asks, how many people are going to get Trump's app? It's a good point. Had this discussion with somebody earlier. It's probably going to be a few percentages of people anyway. Christopher says, what we need is an app to report suspected illegals. I like it. Somebody take note of this. And a border force and government committed to enforcement. Well, we'll speak about the border force and the government with our guest who will be coming up in a couple of minutes, Ash. I like that. An app to report suspected illegals. Somebody get working on that. Christopher says we should offer cash incentives to get rid of people. Absolutely. Cash incentives to the receiving countries too. Very much, very much. Foreign aid should be focused in order to help these immigrants who are leaving Britain, to help them to make their country great again. And we could call the deportation "Help Make Your Country Great Again." And for every immigrant who deports or self-deports back to their country, we'll give some money to your country. Who's going to complain about that? Somebody write that down. That's a great policy. Costing us taxpayers billions a year, says Derek. Absolutely. We published an article on our Facebook page this afternoon about that. Fine the employees. That's very true also. Now, folks, we have got the one and only Ash, that Preston journalist, coming up in 30 seconds. Please say hello to Ash. Let's bring Ash on. Hello there, Ash.
Evening, Alistair. You well?
I'm very well indeed. Did you hear what we were talking about there about the state of border force and the state of our borders and the amazing work that border force does in bringing so many people to our country? We really have to be, I think, grateful for the extent to, what the people, whenever they book in with the criminal gangs, they should basically just buy a ticket Border Force should basically sell them tickets. They should have an outpost in Africa or whatever, just selling tickets for the Border Force crossing. Be a lot cheaper than having to pay the criminal gangs who probably charge an arm and a leg, quite literally. You could just buy a ticket with Border Force and they'll pick you up at Cali and bring you over. How does that?
Well, like you said, you might as well. I heard exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you know that I did a video on this. I did a video talking about these people, Border Force or Border Force, as most people like to refer to them as. And they're actually going on strike over this. They're going on strike over having unworkable hours and things like that. And unfortunately, it's only the people that work at Heathrow Airport who are going on strike. But it's how the last time they went on strike, the airports actually ran smoother. There was less queues because they brought the army in. People who they brought the Royal Logistics Corps in and people like that from the army. And they actually ran the place really well. There was no strike action. There was no queues. Things actually went better. Maybe as well, maybe the ones who we're really referring to here that bring over the people in the small boats could also go on strike, because that would do us a massive favour and stop people going out and actually collecting these people in these boats that are, as one of your commenters just rightly said, costing us an absolute fortune. It's about 40 grand per person that they're costing the taxpayer every single year when they're put into these hotels. They get the spending money, cigarettes, God knows what else. So for every 500 people, that's another 20 million quid added to the bill for the taxpayer. And we're getting 500 a day easily. Some days coming over. Some days it's more than that. And there just isn't the political will to try and stop these people coming over the channel. Nobody's interested. I'm not being party political here. I don't care if it's Labour, Tories, Lib Dems, Greens, SNP, go through them all. They don't care. They're not bothered. They're happy for this to go ahead, with the exception of a few that you might hear speaking out, like your Suella Bravermans and people like that. But they're very much on the fringes. And every other party seems more than happy to allow this to just keep happening. Labour said they were going to cut down on the number of hotels that they were using. It's gone up by a third. And now they're looking for more. There's no one going to stop this. And, well, maybe one party will, or at least, I don't know, I'm not giving a political broadcast for reform here, but at least it's a fresh party with fresh ideas. Maybe they'd do something. Maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they'd fail. But maybe it's worth giving them a go to stop what's been happening for the last decade after decade.
Absolutely. Well, we wrote an article which we'll put up in the threads this week, actually, on Sunday, and we've read a lot about the channel crossings and how best to stop them. And some very well-intentioned people have come up with the idea of, well, under the UN Convention, we can't stop them making the crossing, but we can try to dissuade them. We can try to tell them, for example, that if you do come across, you're going to get processed in Rwanda, or you're going to be, what the Tory idea was, you'll get rendered inadmissible. And under the UN Convention, that means you're not getting into the country, but we can't send you back to the particular country that you claim to be unsafe in, but we can send you to a safe third country. So some people have said Rwanda. And another policy, the think tank called Policy Exchange, suggested processing in the British Overseas Territory of Ascension Island, and then from Ascension Island, farming them out around the world to whatever countries will take them, and so on. And these are all very well-intentioned ideas created within the limits of Britain's membership of the UN Convention. But really, at the end of the day, can we imagine, with the hundreds of people crossing, and let's say it still went down because not everybody wants to get sent to Rwanda, say it just came down to a few thousand a year instead of tens of thousands a year, that's still a huge effort. I mean, is it really going, and is any party going to build holding centres in Ascension Island and so on? And it just seemed to me just ridiculous. So we just come up with the ideas. Look, entry into the UK by illegal methods is against the 1971 Immigration Act. The only reason we're not prosecuting every single person that comes across on the boats from Calais is because under the UN Convention, they are not considered to be illegal. That's not considered to be an illegal entry under the UN Convention. So they're allowed to do that. They're just actually exercising their legal right. And that's under the UN Refugee Convention. So what we need to do is we need to come out of the UN Refugee Convention. And when we come out of it, then we can treat the asylum crossers as we treat any other illegal entrant, as we treat any other person who comes in avoiding the proper ports of entry and comes in avoiding the proper visa restrictions and so on. We can treat them as criminals and we can send them to prison. And if we started sending everybody to prison who comes across, it'd be a matter of days and that traffic would end. It would end. So we can stop it in a very simple way. We come out of the UN Refugee Convention, and that then enables us to criminalise the channel crossers and send them to prison. And that will stop it. And that's what's needed.
It absolutely would. And you're talking too much common sense, though, for our political class, unfortunately. You've actually, unlike a lot of these politicians, you've done your research. You know exactly what can be done to stop this. And I'll give the Tories a little bit of credit. I think Rwanda was having a slight effect. It was starting to do, these illegals were trying to get over to Ireland, and they were doing. So it was having an effect. But then, of course, Starmer comes in, the Dalek of Downing Street, as I call him, and he's a complete automaton. If it's international law, then we must follow it. We can't deviate from anything. And no country does that. Even the EU countries don't stick to UN conventions. They don't even stick to their own ECHR. France and Germany do what the hell they like. So why are we sticking to it so closely when we're supposed to have left the awful EU? Starmer's just so determined to cozy back up to the EU, he'll do whatever. If that means taking hundreds of thousands or millions of illegal immigrants, then he will do. Well, I heard Alex Phillips the other day talking, and she said, why don't we call the French's bluff? We've given them, £500 million anyway, and they've done precisely nothing with it. We know there's even French border officials having lots of drinks and food and that in Calais on the British taxpayer. That's where the money's going. These people are living quite a decent life there. And she said, why don't we get a boat one day, whether it be a RNLI or a Royal Navy ship, sail it over to France, drop these people off back on Calais beach, come back, and then leave them there and see what the French do. They'll do nothing. Are they going to declare war? No. But I tell you what, they might start taking their own border more seriously, because France are, and I don't entirely blame them. France are happy for these people to get on these dinghies and come over here, because then they're not their problem anymore. They're our problem. And then, of course, what sort of government, again, successive ones, thinks it's a sensible policy to basically advertise to the world that you're the biggest soft touch in the entire world. So when you come to Britain, you're not going to get what you get in France, which is basically bread and water and a tent. You're going to get a hotel. As I said, you're going to get cigarettes, spending money, mobile phones. It's just been revealed that we spent over £1 million on SIM cards for these people. And the government's got the goal to attack disabled people over personal independence payments and things like that to save £5 billion in 5 years' time. We've got 12,000 foreign criminals sitting in British jails. We've got countries that are willing to take these criminals back. The Pakistani authorities have told Britain, we'll take these people, it's no problem, because they have such a big problem with grooming, etc. in Pakistan, that it's now a crime, and they've said, send them all over here. They're our problem. They were our citizens. We'll take them. It's no problem. If they've got dual nationality, we'll take them. But then, like you just said, the UN or the ECHR will intervene and say, oh, well, what about their right to a family life? What about their right to, not be sent to a country where they're going to be not ostracized, what's the word, punished for their crimes elsewhere? You deserve to be punished. And
yes.
These people are breaking the law, like you just said. And every one of them, I don't care if they're criminals or not, they are breaking the law by coming into this country. It's even an offence under British law to get into this country without having any documentation. Yet all our laws get ignored, and some judge in Strasbourg or some judge at the UN overrules us every single time. And it's disgusting. And Labour are trying to say that they're sending these people home. We've deported 19,000, they say. Well, they haven't. What they're actually doing is paying these people thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money per person to go to another country. That's all that's happening. And as for Rwanda, like you mentioned before, those facilities that we built, it was at least 200 million, I think, were sent over there. The EU are now considering using them themselves to send their own illegal immigrants over there. The ones that don't get over here, of course. It's absolutely incredible. We're such an idiotic country these days.
That's right. And unfortunately, what's happened in the last, since these international agreements came in the 50s and 60s, is that massive industries have grown up, legal industries have grown up around this. And all that happens with these laws is they get expanded to take in more, examples, as it were. Like the law never narrows to a specific point. The law always just expands like a gas to take in all sorts of new situations that have arisen. So it just grows. It grows and grows. So the legal precedents and court cases under the ECHR and the UN Refugee Convention, they just expand and expand to take in ever more examples of things, to the point where the law is so much more expansive than it ever was even intended to be in the first place. And more lawyers are coming in, exploiting more and more cases. There's tens of thousands of asylum appeals being still to be heard in the United Kingdom. And these are not like the first time they've heard it. They've heard the person's been turned down and they've got the right of appeal. And the appeal then goes on for literally years. Now, one thing that I would do, and what I advocate, is simply abolish the right of appeal for asylum cases. You get one chance, you get one go at it, and if you don't like it, too bad, But this whole the right of somebody staying in the United Kingdom and appealing, that's not even required within the UN Refugee Convention. Now, the UN Refugee Convention, it does talk about appeals, but it's presuming the person's going to make an appeal back in the country that they've been sent to. So the right of in-country appeals, in UK appeals, it's not even required in the UN Refugee Convention. So you look at things like that and you realize the power that the legal lobby has had to put forward its ideas into the heads and into the voting patterns of totally unthinking politicians who have no clue about anything. It's amazing the power that these legal professions have managed to wangle. And we're living with the consequences right now. And that whole system does just need to be broken down. That's why I say the only way is just to say to the legal profession, hey, guess what? Tomorrow we're leaving the UN Refugee Convention. Too bad for your law company. I'm afraid you're going to go out of business. Isn't that sad? Maybe get a proper job trying to do something positive for the country. That would be my approach to things.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I'd take away any legal aid for these people. If these solicitors are so keen to represent these people because they're so lovely, so holier than thou, then I'll tell you what, you do it on a no-win, no-fee basis. Simple. And you get one shot, like you just said, no appeals, no nothing. If you've been in another country, like there was one, wasn't there, recently, who'd committed offences against children in whatever country he'd come from, and then he was afraid to be sent back to that country because he was going to be punished for whatever he'd done to innocent children. In that case, so what happened then was he was allowed to stay in this country. I don't care if you've committed that sort of crime and you're afraid of being sent home, rightly so. And you should be afraid, and you deserve to face the justice where you committed that crime. But of course, no, they're allowed to stay in Britain once again. We said that chicken nugget one the other week, didn't we? These people are mental. The whole system needs a massive reform. The judges are horrendous. They believe all this crap. The UN believes it. All we have to do is we don't even have to come out of the UN. We just ignore them. We just say, forget it. We don't care what you say. We're sending these people back to where they came from. And what are the UN going to do? We pay for them. Just say, sort of, we'll stop paying billions towards you. We've got all this foreign aid that goes all over the world, Alistair. We can say to a country, I don't care who, whoever it might be, just take an example, take India. So we say we've got some Indian criminals here, and then India say, we're not taking them back, then we say, right, well, we'll pull in the £1 billion or whatever we give you. You're not having it anymore. This is what we can you can use as soft power, but they don't. They just choose not to, and we just keep taking them. And why? Because these politicians, these lords, and all the rest of them, the baronesses, they don't live on the same streets as these people. They don't have to live along, they don't have to send their son or daughter to a school where there's a hotel might be nearby that gets stuffed full of illegal immigrants that then potentially poses a risk to their children. They don't have to go through any of that, and that's why they don't care.
100%. And what you said there as well is about Britain's power in the United Nations. I mean, we're one of the biggest contributors and members of the UN. Like, what Britain says matters. So Britain can say to the UN, no, we don't like this anymore. We don't like your 1967 UN Refugee Convention, which was the last time it was updated. Like 1967, the world was completely different, almost before the age. Well, there was jet aircraft in 1967, obviously, but I mean, it was only in its infancy, really. It had only been going for a few years. So, we can flex. We can flex on the UN, and we can say, no, you're going to have to listen to us if you want to be taken seriously. But that requires like a nationalist-minded politician, not a globalist-minded politician, which is what we've got at the moment. These are all like they're concerned more about the international order rather than the order here in the United Kingdom.
Definitely.
So I mentioned earlier in the program as well, people say Britain's got a moat around it, and so it should be easy to maintain the borders, and that's true to an extent, but it's also a bit of a burden, because what that means is, like, if you're a landlocked country, you can literally build a wall along your border, like what America's trying to do. You can literally stand at the border, there's somebody a few yards away, and you can say, no, you can't come in, turn around and walk the other way. And you can literally do that with armed guards and the whole carry on. But in Britain, which is an island, we're actually got what the UN itself calls an unduly heavy burden, an unduly heavy geographical burden, because we can't build a wall. So if somebody rocks up at Dover, climbs off a dinghy, we reasonably cannot turn the dinghy around and push them out to sea again. I know lots of us would like to do that, but reasonably, we can't do that. But if we could stand at a border wall and reasonably say, no, walk that way, because we know the person's just going to walk back to wherever they came from. But when you're actually got water, that's an unduly heavy geographic burden that disadvantages us at the end of the day in the modern world order. It wouldn't disadvantage us back in the 1600s or the 1500s when we could just like shoot them out of a sea with a cannon. But I mean, these days it does disadvantage us because we literally can't push them back out to sea. So we are obliged to take them in. And so that's possibly another reason why they all get here, is because we have not realized that. We should have realized that. The time to realize that was in 2018 when they started coming, and everybody was like, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do now? We should have realized, oh, crikey, we're at a disadvantage here because of this channel. And so what this means is we're going to have to withdraw right now from the UN Refugee Convention and just criminalize this crossing, just criminalize this method of entry, and say anybody who does this method of entry will get straight put in our prison for several years. And that would have stopped it. But we couldn't do that because we were a member of the UN Refugee Convention, and we remain a member of the UN Refugee Convention. But until we do that, it's not going to change. And that would be my message.
While we've got these globalists in charge, it's not going to happen, is it? It's definitely not going to happen under Starmer. It was never going to happen under Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, Theresa May, David Cameron, Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, all these prime ministers. It would never happen under any of them because they all believe essentially the same thing. Like you said before, the world order, international law, that's all that matters to them. Britain, British people, culture, you name it, doesn't matter to them one little bit. It just look at a country like Poland. Just goes to show you can defend your borders if you want to. Anybody can go on the internet and look at videos of Poland. They've got the army there. And if those illegal immigrants cross that border, they get shot. Not with a rubber bullet, they get shot and they get killed, and they know it. And they don't cross that border. They'll stand there all day shouting abuse at the soldiers. Sometimes they get water cannoned and smoke bombed and stuff, but they don't cross that border. And, you know, if more countries had the resolve of Poland, this whole migrant crisis would be over. It'd be finished, because no country would take them, especially the ones that are on the front line of this, which does include Poland, because they're coming through Russia, through Belarus, then going into Poland, or you've got them coming over the Med. So Italy, Meloni's been very strong. She's got crossings down by 63%, I think it is. Greece is turning the boats back now. So some of these countries are actually doing their job. But then you've got the morons like Spain, that's because they've got a socialist government. They're happy to take these people in. You've even got the EU talking about building a tunnel, believe it or not, between Morocco and Spain. Could you imagine?
That's dangerous.
Could you imagine like what would happen there? You might as well just open everything. You might as well just say, refugees welcome here, go where you want, because that's just inviting then more Africans. They don't even have to cross the channel in a small boat. All they've got to do is walk. I mean, it's a long way, but all you got to do is walk all the way there, and you just go straight into the EU, and then they end up in Britain. It's just remarkable. Everyone thought Donald Tusk was going to be a disaster for Poland. So did I, because he's such a Europhile. But tell you what, he's doing the job on the border. He's not softening up, and he's not letting these people in to destroy Polish culture, rape Polish children, or anything of that nature. He's keeping tough, and that's why Poland has the lowest crime rates in the EU.
That's interesting to know, and I wonder to what extent. And I don't know anything about Polish politics, but I wonder to what extent that is because he may be threatened by a party that's even stronger than his views. And so he feels that he has to cater to that attitude, and that's what you find with politicians as well, though. When they realize, oh, there's a party that could take votes from us, then maybe we're going to have to get serious about their issues. And today I saw a Tory MP called Neil O'Brien, and we've got a tweet that he made, which we'll just put up. And I know this guy. There it is there, Neil O'Brien. To paraphrase Tony Blair, the next government must be about deportation, deportation, deportation. Now, that's a Tory MP saying that. That's amazing, really. I mean, I don't think that maybe you'd have to go back to the 1950s to find a Tory MP that actually said that out loud, other than, Powell, of course. But for a Tory MP to be saying that, I mean, he's saying that, let's admit it, he's a Tory MP, and he knows that he's threatened by reform. Yeah. And so he's saying those things. But that's at least good. That's at least good that he's helping to mainstream what I like to call the deportation conversation. And capital D, capital C, the deportation conversation, a conversation we all have to have. And I'm interested here, Gorilla TV channel, which is a great YouTube channel. And Gorilla TV is a great chap. We've met him. We think his work's fantastic, because having personally been deported, the deportation process is not bad if it's done quickly. Well, I don't know what you're talking about there, but no doubt you can tell us, and maybe we'll get you on the show to explain your deportation conversation that you had with the authorities. But yeah. It's coming up to 5 to the hour. Now, you've got a YouTube channel, and it's youtube.com/@ Preston Journalist, all one word. How's that coming along? I know you had a wee bit of a hiccup with it.
Yeah, it's getting there slowly. We're back up to not far off 30,000 now. So getting there slowly.
Well done. Well done. Well, I would advise everybody who's interested in UK politics, and especially Scottish politics, to subscribe to Ash's channel, youtube.com/@ Preston Journalist. Ash puts out videos several times a day, plenty of times a week. They're short and pithy, and he also puts out shorts on YouTube as well. So definitely a political commentator to listen to, and a political commentator going places. Ash thank you very much for coming on. Any last words?
I just wanted to say, ding dong, the witch is dead, and I'm so glad that Sturgeon is stepping down as an MSP. Let's have that.
Absolutely. We didn't get time to talk about the Sturge, but it looks like the Sturge has purged herself and to the great relief of the thinking Scottish voters, I have to say. So yeah, good stuff. Okay, Ash, we'll definitely get you on sooner rather than later. Thanks very much for being here.
Pleasure.
Everybody
Thank you,
say
Alistair.
good night to Ash. Good night.
Thank you all. See you.
Fantastic. Ash, Preston Journalist. Please do subscribe to him at youtube.com/@Preston Journalist. And while you're subscribing to him, folks, you can get yourself some amazing Patriot Gear. That's what we're calling our merchandise tonight. Patriot Gear from our shop, aforceforgood.uk/shop-1. One of the things you can get here is this laptop bag, which is emblazoned with icons of London. And it does say on the back, it does say, warning, if carrying this, do not carry this laptop in this bag in London unless you want to be mugged by a moped thief. It says that on the back. Actually, it doesn't say that on the back. That was just our little joke, but it is kind of ironic, isn't it? But this is definitely a nice laptop bag, or it can just simply be a bag that you carry. You don't have to put your laptop into it. And it's got a zip as well, a side carrying bag as well. We also have a Union Jack door stopper. Check that out. Don't know how much that weighs, but it's at least a couple of pounds anyway, enough to stop the strongest door. And we have got a Union Jack pound salt and pepper set for the patriotic dinner table. As well, of course, as our wee book for the Union. And volume 1 of a big book for the Union. All you need to do here is go on to amazon.co.uk and search for One Big Country. And this will be the first thing that comes up, folks. And we're currently working on volume 2 of One Big Country, which is about protecting the United Kingdom, specifically protecting and securing our borders. And that's a big field of study. And we're coming up. We're not complaining about it. We all know something needs to be done. What we're doing is promoting policies, easy policies. We use Occam's razor when we consider a problem, as in what's the most simple problem here that's reasonably possible. So with the channel crossers, for example, forget about sending them to Rwanda, forget about building processing centres on Ascension Island, just simply leave the UN Refugee Convention and criminalise the channel method of entry. And if anybody comes over, Border Force takes them off the boats and takes them to His Majesty's prison for channel crossers. HMP CC, His Majesty's prison for channel crossers, and we'll build it on the Isle of Sheppey because the Isle of Sheppey already has 3 prisons on it. We've got it all sorted here, folks, and it will be clear in volume 2 of a big book for the Union. And if you'd like to support our work, because this is a full-time effort, this is what we do. We wake up in the morning and we think, how can we protect our borders? And you can help us by sending a donation, please, to aforceforgood.uk/donate to. There you go. No donation is too big or too small, and we need it in order to keep this research and publication and program going. Folks, we've had a good show tonight, finishing with around 250 watching. Thank you for all your comments. Ash was a fantastic guest. Thank you to Ash. World Fun says that they're already subscribed. Oh, here's Gorilla TV coming in saying he was attacked by a taxi driver in the UAE and held for 2 years in Dubai and then deported. Oh my. Goodness me, that's a story. That's a story that has to be told. Derek says, great show. Thanks to all our supporters. Folks, it just remains for me to say we will see you next week. God bless the United Kingdom and God save the King. Good night.